The sources of our beliefs. What are the sources for this belief in a Mahdi figure? In fact, what sources do we base our beliefs and religion on? We all agree that the Quran is the ultimate source, and so too the authentic ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The concept of the Mahdi, however, is not mentioned at all in the Quran, either explicitly or implicitly. Even though it should be mentioned here that some early commentators of the Quran felt that the reference to humiliation in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 114, was to the Mahdi. This verse states, لَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا خِزْيٌ وَلَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. They shall have in this world a humiliation, and they shall suffer in the hereafter a painful punishment. Some early commentators said the humiliation, or one of the humiliations that they shall suffer, will be that the Mahdi shall conquer them and shall subjugate them. However, this is not an explicit or even implicit reference to the Mahdi. So it is true to state that the Quran does not clearly predict the coming of a Mahdi figure. Rather, the Mahdi is only referenced in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And, as is typical with many such topics, some of the hadith that mention the Mahdi are authentic, sahih. Others are good and acceptable, known as hasan. Quite a few, very many actually, are da'if, weak, and many are outright fabrications, mawdu'. This is where the fundamental problem lies. The vast majority of Muslims are simply not aware of the intricate history behind the preservation of the Sunnah. To them, this whole science seems like a dark and strange realm that is simply beyond comprehension, a baffling array of contradictory opinions spouted out with seemingly no consistent methodology, based primarily, or so it seems, upon the scholar's preconceived notions. Some person declares a hadith authentic. Another person declares the exact same hadith inauthentic. One source proclaims each and every hadith that he is quoting has been rigorously verified to be sahih, whereas another person will come and claim that a hadith found in this very source is da'if. Because there is indeed confusion and controversy, it is common to find many Muslims who simply discredit the entire system of hadith compilation. They dismiss the complete science of hadith, the mustalah of hadith, as merely being an excuse for bigoted partisans to discredit any hadith that apparently contradicts a legal or theological position that they've already held. Others, and this perhaps is the majority of Muslims inshallah, they realize that this science is indeed a profound and complex one, and it has a precise and meticulous methodology behind it. But they are perplexed as to how various scholars can arrive at contradictory opinions about the same hadith. While thinking the best of our scholars, at the same time, they are at an almost complete loss as to what to make of such contradictory opinions, or even how to trust a person who says a particular hadith is authentic or not. Who do you trust? Of course, it is simply beyond the scope of the present series of lectures to go into intricate detail about the sciences of hadith. However, because of the fact that the concept of the Mahdi is found entirely in the corpus of hadith literature, it is necessary to divert into a slight tangent and briefly mention the science of categorizing hadith as authentic or inauthentic and what the average Muslim, the layman, should do with regards to such a hadith. Briefly, hadith may be classified into two broad categories: acceptable and unacceptable. For a hadith to be acceptable, it has to meet 5 conditions. The first of them is that it must have a continuous and unbroken chain of narrators from the compiler back to the Prophet ﷺ. The second, that all of these narrators be trustworthy in their character and religion. The third, that these narrators have precise memories and make no mistakes. So they must be trustworthy in their memory, and that is a different condition than being trustworthy in your character. The fourth is that the hadith not contradict anything more authentic than it. If it does, it is called shadh. And the fifth is that there be no hidden defects, called in Arabic ilal, in the hadith or its chain. And this is the most difficult aspect to verify, and only a hadith master has the capability of doing this. So these are the 5 conditions that must be met in order for a hadith to be considered authentic. Any hadith that meets all of these 5 conditions is called sahih, and that is the highest level of hadith. If, however, one or more of the narrators does not have as strong of a memory as others, yet overall he is still reliable and he does have good character and an acceptable memory, then the hadith will be lowered to the status of hasan, or good, but not as high as sahih. So a hasan hadith differs from a sahih hadith in only one of these 5 conditions, the third of them, and that is that the level of memorization, if you like, of the narrator of the hadith is not to the level of the sahih one. It is not that he is weak in his memory, it is just that he might not be as famous as those in the sahih category. If, on the other hand, one of these 5 conditions is not met, and yet at the same time there is no known fabricator or liar in its chain, the hadith shall be categorized as weak or even very weak, da'if or da'if jiddan. And there are many different types of weak hadith, over 30 different types of weak hadith. If a weak hadith is reported from 2 different chains, then in general, each weak hadith supports the other one, and thus the hadith itself is raised to a category of hasan. We call it hasan li ghayrihi, or hasan due to external factors. A weak hadith is of doubtful authenticity. We are not sure if the Prophet ﷺ said it or not. This is in contrast to a sahih or even a hasan hadith. We are pretty certain, or in fact in some cases certain 100%, that the Prophet ﷺ did indeed say that hadith. Obviously, if a hadith is fabricated in mawdu', there is no doubt in our minds that the Prophet ﷺ did not say this hadith. Getting back to the topic at hand, we accept sahih and hasan hadith, and we base our theology and our legal law on them. This is the case regardless of whether the hadith has been narrated through one or a few chains of narrations, known as ahad, or numerous chains, known as mutawatir. Of course, there is no doubt that a hadith narrated by numerous chains, a mutawatir hadith, is stronger than an ahad hadith. And ahad hadith is not to the level of the mutawatir. The point being that an ahad hadith is not disqualified merely because it is ahad. And this is the opinion of all of the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that an ahad hadith can indeed be used for theology and for fiqh. And there is some slight disagreement amongst the scholars in the finer details of applying this rule. But the overall rule is agreed upon, and that is that an ahad hadith is accepted and is something that we should act upon or believe in as long as it is authentic and it has met the 5 conditions listed above. Now, we don't have to go into too much detail about ahad hadith simply because the ahadith pertaining to the Mahdi are in fact mutawatir. And there are more than a dozen scholars of hadith who have stated that the ahadith pertaining to the Mahdi are mutawatir. So because the ahadith of the Mahdi are mutawatir, they have been narrated by so many different chains and so many different people, we don't really have to go into detail proving that ahad hadith is used in theology.